Hey everybody, Melissa here, the Unlikely Hiker. I hope all of you are doing great today. I don't know about you, but where I live in upstate New York, and I'm pretty sure most of the country, it has been painfully hot and humid. So being we have these crazy weather conditions, I thought I would talk about heat-related emergencies in the backcountry that you really do need to pay attention to when you're hiking. So I understand that high temperatures up here in the Northeast maybe aren't quite as severe as down south, but we also don't have air conditioning the way a lot of people down south do. Most older homes just don't have central air. That being said, there is no air conditioning in the outdoors, and it's the humidity that seems to cause the issue lately. It's so hot and so painfully humid, like rainforest humid, that no matter what you do, you're just sweating to death and you cannot cool down. And I know I was on a hike last week, if not the week before, and I just felt like I was going to spontaneously combust. I was so overheated. If your sweat can't evaporate into the surrounding air, you're just not going to cool down. So this is where heat-related emergencies come in. And I wanted to touch on that briefly today because I do think it's really important to pay attention to, and sometimes we don't do a really good job of that. So obviously, exercising in a hot and humid environment, your body temperature is going to rise. When your body temperature elevates a little, that's not a big deal. Your body starts to compensate, you start to sweat, and that's how your body mechanism is to cool down. But when it gets too humid and that sweat can't evaporate and your body temperature continues to rise, we call it getting overheated or heat exhaustion. It's technically called hyperthermia. I won't go into the specific medical terminology of how all of this works, but I will discuss the important parts that you do need to be aware of. So hiking in a desert is a little bit different. If you can get some shade on yourself, either using a tree or an umbrella, something like that, so that your body's sweat can evaporate. But when it's too humid, this process fails. This is kind of what heat index refers to. So the heat index is, if the temperature is 92 degrees with 80% humidity, 90% humidity, that increases the heat index. So it feels hotter than what the ambient air temperature would typically feel like. So obviously it's really important to stay hydrated, use electrolytes, stop and rest, and let your body cool down. Give yourself an opportunity to sit in the shade, no matter how hot, no matter how humid it is, to cool down a little bit. So this could look like more frequent breaks. It could look like more frequent water. These things are very, very important because you're losing so much fluid. On the low end of the heat illness spectrum, you're going to have things like heat cramps and heat-related syncope. And that's just obviously muscle cramps, and that could be due to dehydration or the need for electrolytes, and heat-related syncope where your body is just going to pass out. So heat-related syncope specifically happens when your thermoregulation is not working and the body is shunting the blood towards the extremities and away from your core and brain because it's trying hard to cool down. It's trying to throw out as much heat as it can so your blood vessels dilate and it pushes the blood out, and now all of a sudden there's not enough up here and you're going to faint. It can definitely happen without warning. You may get a little bit of dizziness. If you do have some dizziness on a really hot day, it's super important that you stop and deal with that immediately. Get some fluid in you and cool down. You also could feel nauseous and, like I just said, lightheaded. Now, it's possible to recover from these two things very quick. You want to remove yourself from the source of the heat into the shade, cool down, get some water in you, get some electrolytes in you, and rest. You will recover quickly and you can continue on, but you're going to have to pay attention to those symptoms. Now, heat exhaustion is the next level. This is where you're going to have dizziness, headache, nausea, cramps, elevated body temperature. This is where the core body temperature is starting to go up. And you're also going to have pretty good exhaustion with this. You're just going to feel incredibly fatigued. And this is going to happen when you lose too much fluid from sweating in a hot environment. In more severe stages, you can also have some altered mental status. So you get confused, maybe you're stumbling around, maybe you feel a little disoriented, that sort of thing. Again, you need to stop and you need to tend to the situation immediately, have some salty snacks, get some electrolytes in you, get out of the sun and cool your body down. You want to remove clothing. Like, I like to hike in long sleeve shirts, but there's a point to which it just gets so hot out. I almost don't want to have much of anything on. A tank top is going to be about all I can tolerate. So you want to give your skin as much opportunity to get rid of the sweat and have it evaporate to cool your body down until you start to recover. And by doing those things, that's the only way that you're going to get your body temperature down. Heat stroke is the most extreme. Heat stroke is a life-threatening emergency. This is where your body temperature, all of those things are happening, but now we've moved beyond that. And your body temperature hits 104 or above. You're basically starting to cook your brain. You're going to have an elevated heart rate. You're going to be breathing faster and heavier. And you also will probably have a drop in blood pressure. And also you're going to have altered mental status. Now, heat stroke can happen without exertion. The other ones are all going to be with exertion, but this could be you're just sitting out in the sun for so long. Let's say you're in the desert, you have a lower leg injury, you can't walk, you can't stand, you can't seek shade, and you're just in the baking sun all day. So that's going to increase your body temperature, and this can happen that way, or it can happen with exertion. So either one. If this is left untreated, shock will occur and subsequently death. So this is definitely nothing to mess around with. If you have somebody whose body temperature is high, and you can tell, you can feel them, you need to remove them from the heat source, and this is a life-threatening emergency. You need to call for rescue. Heat exhaustion, fainting, heat cramps, those can be dealt with in the field. Although if you have heat exhaustion, you really need to turn around and head back to wherever it is or stay in the shade for an extended period of time to make sure that that core body temperature does in fact drop. Where heat stroke, you very well could die if left untreated, and this can happen quickly. Offering water or even removing them from the shade, sometimes it's just too late, and muscle cramping is absent in heat stroke. Other mitigation for heat exhaustion and heat stroke, besides getting them away from the heat source, is to raise their legs about 10 to 12 inches to try and shunt some of that blood back to the core. And you also want to remove clothing in a person that has heat exhaustion or heat stroke. If you do have enough water that you can spare for somebody suffering from one of these, dousing their head, their neck, their groin, under their arms, wet cloths, anything you can do to add some more water that can possibly evaporate into the air around you to help cool them down. A fan, if you're somewhere where you have access to a battery powered fan or an electric fan, something where you can get a breeze on these people and you can get that evaporation going so that the body can cool itself down. If you're trying to decide, is this heat exhaustion, is this heat stroke, it's all about the altered mental status. So if it continues and it doesn't resolve, you're looking at heat stroke. And again, I can't point this out enough. You have to understand that that is an absolute medical emergency, and that person needs ALS, an immediate evacuation. So, what can we do about this? As much as we all love to go out hiking and backpacking, seriously, if it's that hot and humid out, either consider hiking in a shaded area that doesn't have a lot of elevation gain and loss so that you're not pushing yourself too much, or wait until evening to do a hike or early morning to do a hike, or don't go out. There definitely are some weather situations where you just should not go out backpacking. And, if it's 96 degrees out with profound humidity, that's not the day to do it. It's not the day to take your dog out. It's not the day to take your friends out. It's not the day to take yourself out. It can be a tough choice sometimes, especially when we plan for months to go out on a trip and we have the time off and everything is packed. You just want to get out there and do it, but I'm here to tell you your life is just not worth it. Make sure when you're backpacking you carry electrolytes, plenty of them. Personally, I like to use Liquid IV. I know a lot of people also use Element. I don't care what you're trying to use. You could just eat chips for all I care, but you need to replace that salt that your body is losing, and you also must have enough water. You are going to be sweating profusely. If you usually take 2 liters of water and it's really hot and humid, you might need double that at least. So it really is important to calculate those things carefully. And if you do start to get too warm and you're still headed uphill and you're still really working yourself, consider turning around. If you're hiking in a group, it's important that you all keep each other in check because we're kind of our own worst enemy here. I might really want to continue, but my friends that I'm hiking with, maybe they're noticing something abnormal about my behavior or what's going on, or maybe they brought more fluid than I did, or maybe I brought more than them, or maybe I had electrolytes and they didn't, whatever. if you're hiking in a group, you all have to pay attention to each other and keep each other in check and make sure that you're looking out for each other's safety. So that's all I got for you today. Just this quick little video talking about this. I don't expect anyone to be an expert in this, and you don't need to be. You just need to be aware that these conditions exist, how to deal with them in the field, and when to turn around. So that's what I got for you today. I hope you're getting out there despite this lovely summer that we're having. Maybe one of these days I'll get my jet ski out because that's pretty much all I feel like doing right now. But take care. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.